you're going to do the work, you might as well get the credit. What I mean by that is, I believe everyone should be an author. Write a book. Over your life, you are writing a book.
Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO.
Welcome, and a few more welcomes. Woo! Hopefully, you know what time it is. It's time for Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. E is in the house. It is truly a pleasure to be with you today. I don't know about you. I'm in a really good mood, right? And guess what? The things about moods is you get to decide, right, what mood you're in. So we're going to have some fun today because guess what? Here we go. One more time. Everybody's still in line. Here we go now. Woo, woo. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Do you know what group that is? Do you even know what song that is? It's funny. I'll sing songs to folks and they'll be like, I never heard that song before. And then I'll play them the song and they'll be like, yeah, I've heard that song, but that's not what you were singing, right? So it's good times, my friend. So we're in, just to refresh you, the journey, part 2, right? So if you didn't listen to part 1, you definitely want to go back and listen to part 1. So a lot of people ask, Eric, how did you get to where you are? So I took you back to high school, right, to where I am today. What was the journey I took, the decisions that I made? And in part 1, hopefully you listened to it, I went over my career at the CIA as a professional hacker that sort of laid that foundation for the rest of my career, which was 2 big things. First, I learned at the CIA, offense is easy, right? You could always score. Right? You could always get in because of the law of cybersecurity. Right? This is one of the laws that I created, right? I'm sort of like the Albert Einstein or whoever that dude was that created the law of gravity, right? The law of cybersecurity. And it's real simple. The law of cybersecurity is this. Whenever you add functionality, you decrease security, which means any functional system will have vulnerabilities, which means from an offensive standpoint, you can always get in. So to me, understanding the offense was a key part, but at least in my journey, it was the beginning. Once you understand offense, to me, it was then all about how do you use that to properly defend and secure cyberspace. Because as I've said many times, I truly believe that my purpose for being here, my purpose for being on this planet is simple: to end suffering in cyberspace. There's a lot of great folks I'm working with, and they're really good friends of mine, that their mission is to end suffering in the physical world. And it's awesome because we team up. I'm like, you definitely handle that part because that's needed. But there's a whole lot of suffering online that's not needed. And it's because we don't have the proper security. So to put it another way, my mission is to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. But in order to do that, I need to focus in on the defense. So that was one of the first pivotal pieces. Defense was my calling. Protecting, securing, and making cyberspace safe. The second big calling was I had this entrepreneurial bug in me. I didn't like working for other people. And I'm sitting there going, why can't I use my skills and my talent to build something bigger than me? Right? To build companies and to build and sell. So that's my other big thread that a lot of people don't necessarily know me for, is I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm on my 4th company right now, And it's to me just the journey of learning, right? Always learning, always growing, always getting to that next level. So the journey part 2, and remember the big theme here is you are in control of your life. Let me say that again. You are in control of your life. If you don't like where you are, you can change it. You can adjust it. You can create. You are the author. You are the creator of this thing called your life. Every day, you're writing chapters in that book. And the question is this: do you want to write a new chapter? At any time, you can decide, period, that's the end of this chapter. Let's start a new chapter. But so many people, their lives are one chapter. And it could really be, reread this chapter, right? They keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'll make it simple for you, my friends. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep having what you've always had. It all starts with a decision, a change to do something different. Now, change is scary, but change can also be very, very fun. I look at it, I wouldn't be here if I didn't try and experiment and do a lot of crazy things. So I left the government and I decided to go work for a telecom. And that's where I really got bit with the CISO bug, right? So this was in the late 90s, where I essentially was a chief information security officer before that title really existed, right? Before there was really such a thing. And I remember I was hired as their sole and only security person. And I'm in meetings with the CIO, and I will tell you, I still remember Phil. He's one of those folks, to be honest with you, I wish I stayed in touch with. I mean, talk about a good, wholesome, awesome individual. I mean, that was him, and he really helped set me on the track. But I remember having a conversation with him. And once again, he was a very forward-thinking CIO, and you'll see this in a minute. But he sat down with me and he said, Eric, why do you report to me? I remember looking at him like, you're my boss, dude. What are you talking about? He's like, my job as a CIO is uptime availability. I've committed to the 5 nines. That is what drives me, and that is what I'm focused on. And he goes, I'll be honest with you. You're a thorn in my side. And he meant it as a positive. He smiled. He goes, because what your goal is different than my goal. And me and you need to be equals and spar to come up with the best solution. You can't be buried under me. He goes, because I will be completely and totally honest with you. As long as you report to me, you will be secondary. Because I will make my decisions based on uptime availability. That's what I'm trained. That's my focus. That's my target. So anything that you come up with is going to be secondary to that, and the company will suffer. He goes, therefore, it makes no sense for you to report to me. And he made me an equal. Now, back then, chiefs had a very unique position in the company because they actually had a liability component, so there was a lot of insurance. So I was sort of like a little C ISO, right? Because I couldn't officially be a chief. But he went to the CEO, Buddy, at the time, and basically said, listen, as far as you're concerned, me and Eric are equals, and here's why. Now, we will resolve disputes as much as we can and come to you with a single solution. But if we disagree, which will happen, we want to let you know that you are going to have to be the tiebreaker. You are going to have to decide, is uptime or security more important to the business? So when I go in and I talk about saying that cybersecurity can't report to the CIO and it's a conflict of interest. And CIOs get mad at me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, it was taught to me by a CIO, right? The CIO is the one that told me this can't work and explained it in a very simple manner. So we need to understand that cybersecurity is different than information technology. If we really want to break it down, a CIO is really a technical problem. Uptime availability, packets flowing over the network, right? That is availability. That is technical. That is router switches. Cybersecurity is not technical, it's business. You have to decide, here's the functionality, and here's the risk. Is that functionality worth the risk? That's a business decision. It's not a technical problem. Now, yes, if you decide that the risk is not worth it and you want me to reduce the risk, I can use technology to reduce the risk. But cybersecurity isn't technology. It's a business problem with a business question of, is this risk acceptable based on the functionality you want to implement? So I really look at my time at Telligent was really learning so much about cybersecurity, being a chief information security officer. And like I said, I cannot thank Phil enough for really teaching me and training me, because he could have been like many CIOs, which was like, no, security buried. I don't want to deal with it. But he was smart enough to be open and honest about it. So that's when I really started getting that executive feel for things. And I started realizing, wait a second, I am doing all these great things at Telligent, but there was a problem. I was an overhead function. IT and security traditionally at companies are overhead, which means you don't control your destiny. If the company does well, you get a budget. If the company doesn't do well, your budget gets cut. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I like this. I'm not in control of my destiny. Somebody else is. Right now, yes. I've learned that my job is to help those businesses, help them be successful. But ultimately, I am not a P&L center, profit and loss, which means I don't get to determine how well I do. So that's when I decided it was time to become an entrepreneur. It was time to build a company. But I was still somewhat young, and I was smart enough to know that I didn't know what I was doing. And that's a key trick. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and surround yourself with people that complement those strengths. Now, there's two ways to look at this. One is it a skill that you must have? So in this case, I knew I wasn't good at business, but I needed to know business. So I surrounded myself with really smart business people that would teach me that skill, because I needed to know that skill. Now, another skill, organization and tracking and scheduling and all those things, those are things I'm not good at. And guess what? I don't need to be. That's why I have the best EA on the planet, and she is amazing at that. She complements. So when you go in and you look at Eric plus my EA, we have the total package, right? We're a team. I always refer to us as a team, right? So that's a situation where I knew it was a skill I didn't have, but I also knew it was a skill I didn't need. I could bring somebody in to complement me. So the question you have to ask is, if you currently have a gap, is it a skill that you need to learn and become good at, like business? Or is it a skill that you need to hire somebody who's really good at it to complement you and support you in that role? So it's always those decisions. So in this case, I knew I needed to know business. So I found some really smart people that were much older than me that knew business. And I came in and said, listen, I have some great ideas with technology. You understand business. Let's work together. So I became a CTO of a government contractor that we eventually went in and sold to Lockheed Martin for around 400 mil. Now, this is another lesson. Numbers aren't always what they appear to be. I always love talking with folks and business people, and they're like, oh, I have a company that's worth $100 million. And they're like, oh, Eric, and your company's only 10 mil. And I always jokingly think, and sometimes if they're good friends of mine, I say, I'm like, dude, if your company is really, truly worth 100 million, why are you driving a broken down car? And why you live in a small house, right? And they're always like, oh, no. I don't have 100 million, but the company's worth it. No. What value do you get, right? We love to overinflate these numbers, and people throw out numbers, but the reality is, what percent of the pie do you own? Right? I hear this all the time where people are like, oh, I sold my company for 200 million. And I'm looking around at their lifestyle, and I'm like, it doesn't seem to be a $200 million lifestyle. And they're like, oh, yeah, I only got 200K out of the deal. So you didn't really sell your company for 200 million. You sold your company for 200K. Let's be clear here. So I always love when people play with numbers, but I learned that too, where yes, 400 million sounds like a lot, but a couple of issues. One is the company only had a 1x valuation. That means you essentially, whatever your revenue is what you got paid. And by the way, the evaluation of the company was actually originally half, because it's just contracts. There was no intellectual property or anything else. But fortunately, as CTO, I had patents, and we were able to sole source, and we did. And so I had an intellectual portfolio that I built for the company that we were able to negotiate up to a 1x. But that's when I learned the trick to business. And here's the trick. If you're running a business, it's not the revenue that's important. It's the valuation. Because let me give you two numbers. So you have a $200 million company. But if you want to go sell it, it's 0.5, so they'll give you 100 mil for it. Or I have a $20 million company, but it has a 10x valuation, so I can sell for 200 mil. Which would you rather? Right? So that's when I learned one of my specialties that's still my specialty today is, how do you build out valuation of a company? How do you go into me? Yes, revenue is important, but more important is, how do you increase that valuation so you can get 8, 10, 12x? Because I'll tell you right now, it's easier to increase valuation than it is increase revenue. Now, you want to do both, right? But if you go in and we're starting from scratch and I have to build 200 million in revenue, or I have to build 20 million revenue with 10x valuation, trust me, if you do it correctly, that second one is easier, quicker, and faster. So which way do you want to go? So that's one of the other key takeaways in business is, are you really looking at the big picture? Are you looking at the total valuation? So let's just make it clear. And I learned this after the first first acquiring of companies that I did. A lot of people say they have a business when in reality they have a lifestyle. I'll say that again. A lot of people claim they have a business, but they really have a lifestyle. Let me explain. A lifestyle means you're basically a highly paid employee, right? You're making a lot more money than if you worked for a company, but you're basically salary. A company, a true company, has to have three things. First, it has to make a profit. Right? That one's pretty obvious, right? And pretty easy and simple. The second one is it has to run without a single person or individual. So it has to run without you. So you look at a lot of small businesses like a dentist or a doctor, it's not a small business because it can't run without the doctor, right? If the doctor's not there, it doesn't make money, right? So you want to have a way that you're making money when you sleep. You want to have reoccurring revenue streams that if you're not working and you're deciding to sit on the beach drinking a pina colada, right? Pina coladas, right? That you're still making money. So that's the second piece that is often missed. And then the third most important piece, for something to be a business, it must be a sellable asset. So just think about that. If you think you're in business right now, or you're making a profit, most people are, or you wouldn't be around. But the second one is, can you make money when you're sleeping? Can you make money without you doing the work? And then third, is it a sellable asset? Those are the three requirements to have a business. So that's what I learned at my time with the first company. So then I left there and I went in and I decided, okay, I've tried my hand at government contracting, and that's okay. The nice thing with government contracting is you get 3 or 4 year contracts, right? So you get a nice runway. You don't have to worry about monthly and yearly expenses because you have a lot of commitment. But you get 1x. So I went the other extreme. And the other extreme was, why don't I go to a product company? So I got hooked up with John McAfee and Dave DeWalt, who at the time, this was in the 2007-8 period, where if you know the antivirus space with McAfee, they were struggling. There was a lot of competitors, a lot of people coming on the scene, a lot of not only national competition like with Symantec and others, but you had Sophos and Trend Micro and Kaspersky, right, from all different countries coming in very, very competitive landscape. And just to be honest, they were getting their butts kicked, right? They were not doing a great job there. So they brought me in with the goal of basically revamping the company. So I came in and we had a 5-year plan to basically rebuild the entire product line, revamp. So I spent a lot of time, and this is also where I learned a lot about listening to customers. Customers don't just buy the best product. That's a misnomer, right? You can go in and look at a lot of cases in history where substandard products win. It's not whether the product is better or not. It's whether the product aligns and meets the customer's needs. So are you the best solution for that need based on the price? And is there enough urgency for them to purchase? Right, so everything I did was all about learning and a journey. I had set goals there. And we went in and ended up accomplishing that goal a lot quicker. We did it in about 3 years, and we sold to Intel for a few $1 billion. Once again, what slice of the pie do you have, right? So it's always about the evaluation. And here I learned with products, you get a very big valuation. So I went from 1x with a government contractor to 6 or 7x on that front. So that's great, but one challenge with products, you need a lot of capital to build them up. You need somebody to invest, typically 10, 15, 20 mil, and then you're going to run it as a negative, and then you usually get another round. So you're somewhere getting 30 to 50 million of outside investment over multiple years before you even start to make that profit. Now, yes, you go in and you own 10 or 15 or 20%, and you sell for a few bill. That's not a bad takeaway, but it's a long ramp-up period. So then I said, okay, what's an area that we can ramp up quickly, but still get that high valuation, still get the 5 or 6 valuation? And that's when I found my real calling, training. I love teaching. It is a holiday, and I'm in the office having fun with you, right? So you gotta love what you do. And I realize being behind the mic is my happy place. Why? Because I get to help people. I love connecting and helping. I'm a natural born teacher. I joke, but it's probably serious. At some point, right down the road, I don't believe in retiring. I just don't understand that model, because it's basically saying, be miserable for 30 years, and then at the end, you get nirvana, right? Then at whatever age, 60, 65, whatever you choose, you then get to relax for the rest of your life. But my thing is, why can't we enjoy and relax now? Why shouldn't our whole life be enjoyment? Why shouldn't what you're doing be what you love? So to me, at some point down the road, just because I highly respect it. I remember when I visited, I just fell in love with the place. At some point, I will be a professor at MIT, right? And to me, what better life? You're a professor, you teach 3 to 4 days, then Thursday you finish class, you go to the airport with your private jet, you fly down to Miami, spend the weekend in Miami having some fun, chilling out, reading and learning and doing research. You then fly back on Monday. You get to spend time with amazing students and influence the next generation. I mean, does life get much better than that, right? So at some point, I'm gonna do more of that. But to me, teaching is what I love. So then I realized, if you build training courses and then you teach other people how to train and teach, that's when it starts scaling. So I had the #1 selling course, Security Essentials, for over 10 years. I'm not sure where it's at now, but when I built it and running it, it was #1 because I was always focused on the quality piece. I spent a lot of my time not only transferring my knowledge to other students, but transferring my knowledge to other instructors. Right? There's dozens of instructors that I helped bring up that were struggling, that had trouble. I remember a couple cases where I worked, they were like, yeah, we don't think this person's gonna work out. And I'm like, no, I see something in them. Right? I see some magic in them. Let's give them one more chance. Right? And you just gotta tap in to that magic and let it come out. Right? So that's when I went in and learned that training is a great platform. Right? You get great evaluation, great margins, and great areas with that. But then, like I said, it's always about moving on. So then I felt the need to move on from that. So I transitioned, and now today I'm running Secure Anchor, where, once again, it's all about training and helping. So people look at my company and go, it doesn't make sense. You're doing expert witness work. You're doing executive board presentations. You're doing security assessment, and you're doing CISO training. Those seem like all diverse. I'm like, no. Step back. What do they all have in common? And most people go, nothing. I'm like, no, you're not looking correctly. What they all have in common, they're all about taking very technical concepts and translating them in a way so non-technical people can understand. Expert witness is taking a technical patent or technical area and explaining it to a judge or jury. Board of director presentations, same thing. Security assessments, same thing. So when you look at it from that standpoint, everyone's like, oh, now we see the trend, right? So it's important that you have a clear vision. Other people might not see it or understand what's happening, but you have to have that clear vision. Now, a couple of other things as we start to wrap up is I'm almost a big fan of, you're going to do the work, you might as well get the credit. What I mean by that is, I believe everyone should be an author. Write a book. Over your life, you are writing a book. The question is, do you get credit for it? And same thing, I'm a big fan with, at some point, if you have the calling, and not for everyone, but why don't you go back part-time and get additional degrees? You're doing the work, right? Everybody does the work. The only question I have is, did you get credit for it? You did the work, but do you have a book? You did the work, do you have the degree? Right? So the point is, anybody has that potential. You just have to go in and say, it's worth it for me to invest in me. It's worth it for me to invest in myself. So I always get the question, Eric, to be a CISO, do I need to write books? Do I need to do videos? Do I need to be on stages? Do I need to do all those things? And the answer is no. If you just want to be a CISO, you can just show up to work, do a good job, and communicate to execs. But that's not why I'm here, and that's not why you're here. We're here to make you what you were destined to be, which is world-class. To be a world-class CISO, you need to write books. You need to be on stages. You need to do thought leadership, because that is what you were destined to be. And the reason why so many people are frustrated in their jobs or are not as happy as they could be, because they know deep inside they're world class. You're listening to these podcasts because you know you're world class. My only question to you is this: are you going to step up and own it? So I challenge you. I challenge you today. Start doing things a little differently. Start writing an hour a day. If you write an hour a day, guess what happens in a few months? You have a book. And if you do a video a day, guess what? In a few months, you have a podcast. So I challenge you. There is greatness within you. You are world class. Stop sitting on the sidelines and engage in it. I hope you enjoyed my two-part series on the Dr. Cole journey, and I can't wait to see you at our next podcast.